I'm here with Peter Wallace, producer and host of the Day One radio program, Episcopal priest, and the author of The Passionate Jesus. Thank you, Peter, for joining us today.
I'm delighted.
As you know, Frederick Buechner will soon be turning 90 years old. Is there anything you would like to wish him for this great milestone?
Well, obviously, a happy and blessed birthday, but I hope that he can get a sense of just how much people love him across the board, all over the Christian map, and the impact that he's had on so many lives is just unbelievable.
Well, thank you very much, Peter. I'm sure that Mr. Buechner will greatly appreciate hearing from you. First, can you tell me how you first learned about Mr. Buechner's work?
Yeah, I was trying to remember because it feels like he's always been part of the fabric of my faith and my understanding of the faith. And I went to seminary back in the early 80s, and I think that's when I first came across Mr. Buechner. And that was kind of the beginning of his autobiographical phase, where he was coming out with those several books, and I started buying each one of those and reading those. And then that kind of drove me back to the classics from the 70s that I had missed, you know, Alphabet of Grace and, you know, Wishful Thinking and all those wonderful, wonderful classics that just kind of keep being reprinted and have such an impact on folks. I got into his fiction, you know, back when that was coming out, Godric and Brendan, and I still haven't read all of his books, which is good for me because I still have lots to look forward to, and I'm really interested in some of his earlier novels and so forth that I have never read. So it's been a lifelong journey with him. I think what he does is what I wish I could do in writing, and that's being very authentic and honest about doubts and fears and questions, all those things that he is, you know, such a master at working through and figuring out and saying it's okay, you know, to have some of those fears and doubts, but also his ability to see grace in everyday life, to pay attention to those moments in life that God brings our way that we so easily miss. I mean, it's his writing is a breath of fresh air, no matter where you read it, when you read it, and you know, I wish that I could get somewhere even close to his ability to do that. Well, you know, as I say, I think all of the writing that he's done that I have inhaled over the years and tried to live with and respond to colors not only my faith but my desire to write. Obviously, you know, I'm in ministry. I was already in a ministry track when I discovered Mr. Buechner, but he's been with me along the way, and it's been something that has enriched my own faith and my own career in a variety of ways. So there's such a breadth of what he's done. I would have to say, though, I guess my tendency is to gravitate toward his nonfiction works on faith. You know, a lot of those books are so slim physically, but they're so deep and rich. So those are the ones that I keep going back to in my own ministry and so forth. Just the way he's able to describe theological concepts or the people of the Bible or whatever it is, it gives you a handle on it that you just had never thought about before, and it's so refreshing.
What influence would you say that Mr. Buechner has had on Christianity and the world at large?
Immeasurable. It's just interesting. This week, you know, I had forgotten we were having this conversation. I'm preparing my own sermon for Sunday, and of course I always read his sermon illustration of the week, and I'm using a part of what was this week's in my sermon, of course, crediting him. I've done that more than once, and I'm sure I'll do it many times again. And then today we had a day one recording session for our radio program. A Baptist minister who's becoming the senior pastor of a congregational church in New York. And during the interview, I asked him a question about his sermon, and he said, as Frederick Buechner has said, and used a quote of Frederick Buechner's in his answer, it's like Frederick Buechner pervades this sense of authentic Christianity that I think the world is so hungry for. And so his impact, I think, is immeasurable. Now you think, I've got a small church that I preach to. The Day One program will be heard by several 100,000 people over on the radio or on podcast. But then you multiply that each week in pulpits across the country and around the world where somebody is quoting Frederick Buechner, and you think it just ripples out continually, and I think always will.
If you were to sum up Fred's writings in a few words, what would you say?
Yeah, it is impossible to sum up because his life and ministry encompass such a broad swath of creativity and passion, reality, ministry. But I think, the thing that has helped me, I think, the most from Fred's work is the notion of paying attention, listening to your life. That collection of devotions from various sources that came out in the early 90s was a constant companion for me in my devotional times and during those years. But pay attention, and be open to the grace of God as it comes to you in ordinary life. I led the series that Trinity Church did several years ago that was on DVD with Fred and Maya Angelou and James Carroll, Sacred Stories it was called. It was a presentation at Trinity Church that they filmed, and we did that as a Sunday school series. And Fred's stories, the very first session is Fred telling the story of his father's suicide. And I had to warn the folks, this is real. This is real stuff. This is hard and painful, but so do each one of us have those stories. And I was amazed. It wasn't a large group. It was probably 20 people in this class. But 2 people then shared their stories of similar family members. In fact, one gentleman shared his story, and his wife told me later, he's never shared that with anyone. And Frederick Buechner allows us all to kind of let our masks down, be real with one another, share our stories, and we need that so desperately now, I think more than ever, as we're so consumed by technology and things like that. We need to share our sacred stories, and I think he has been an incredible exemplar of that, and I am, for one, deeply grateful.
Is there anything else that you would like to say before we finish?
I think that covers it. I really appreciate the opportunity. I wish that I could express my thanks personally, but I hope that he does sense the love and how much he means to so many of us who are striving to serve our Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, Peter, thank you so much again for joining us. I'm sure Mr. Buechner will appreciate it, and we certainly do.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Brian.